Parshiyos, Matos Masei, Shabbos Chazak. Could you believe it? What happened to this year? Where did it go? Shabbos Chazak, and I always like to mention when we lay the Chazak after Parshas Masei, I always like to remind everybody that the next Chazak we do is right around the corner, and it's Simchas Torah. And these days, Simchas Torah brings up some memories of Eretz Yisrael from last year, but we have to remember that it's a Yontif, and we're looking forward to Simchas Torah, but it's right around the corner. And this Shabbos Chazak, and what we really need, Chazak, strengthening in, we have to remember that we're in the Bein HaMetzarim. Also, we are about a week and a half before Tisha B'Av, and Mashiach is still not here. And if Mashiach is not here, it means that we're not doing what is required of us to bring Mashiach. And we look at Eretz Yisrael, we look at what's going on, crazy things happening all around the world, around Eretz Yisrael. Everything revolves around Klal Yisrael, everything revolves around Eretz Yisrael. And we have to understand that the only answer and the real answer is that for Mashiach to come, but in order for Mashiach to come, we need to get our act together. We have to start fixing up what caused us to have a Chorban Beis HaMikdash, which means that we have to continue working on Avas Chinam, to push out Sinas Chinam, stop judging other people a little, to improve in Bein Adam L'Chaveroi, improve in our relationship with our fellow man, and that every person does their share. That is what is going to bring Mashiach. This week, for our share, just a couple of programming announcements. First of all, I want to welcome, we have a special schus tonight to have back the founder of this shir, someone who thought it was a big joke when he asked me to say a shir some 730 something odd weeks ago. And Baruch Hashem, 730 something now straight weeks. And it's a tremendous, tremendous schus for Yosef Motorpearl from the Southside Sandwich Shop way back when, almost 15 years ago that we started. And little did he think that this year was going to make its way around the world every Thursday night and spread to thousands of people. And really, really, it's all in his schus, and it should be a schus for him and his family and for Klal Yisrael. The next thing I want to mention is that Bikur Cholim has a very special system here. That there are people who work in the kitchen, there are people that produce the delicious toyamel every single week, but this week it happened to be that the cook, the person who makes the food for Shabbos, and which thereby produces a toyamel for us over here, and all the Chashva, Yungalayit, and people over here, what happened is that the cook wasn't here. So I came in tonight, had an extra special smell in the cholent over here, extra special, and I knew something was different. And I said to Rabbi Brol and to the volunteers here, what's different? They told me the director of operations, Ramot Brody, gets into the kitchen, takes over, gets his hands dirty. Well, actually keeps his hands clean. He wears gloves, I'm sure. But he got into the kitchen, made the food for this Shabbos, and the show must go on. The hospitals need to get the food. People, cholim, people all around that depend on Bikur Cholim, it has to happen, and it doesn't matter who it is. Everybody in Bikur Cholim, no one spares us. Everybody goes and does whatever it takes. On that note, we have a little bit of time left for tonight's year, and one of the inyanim that the Torah speaks about in this week's double parsha is the inyan of, and we never spoke about this on Thursday. In all the 15 years, I don't believe we've spoken about Geulei Nachrim, where you have kalim, you have utensils that become either tamei or treif, and there's a way to kasher kalim. How do we kasher vessels that need to be kashered? And the Torah says the following. The Torah says, "Vayomer Elazar HaKohen." We know that Aaron HaKohen wasn't around at this point. And Elazar HaKohen said, El Anshe HaTzavah Haboim LaMilchama. This is taking place after Milchemes Midyan. Zois Chukas HaTorah. This is the rule, this is the law of the Torah. Asher Tzivah Hashem es Moshe, that Hashem commanded Moshe, and then it says like this, the halachas. And you're familiar with some of this. Kol davar asher yavoi ba'esh, any utensil that was used with fire, taviru bo'esh. The way to kasher it is once also to put it through fire. V'chol asher lo yavoy bo'esh. Anything that did not get used for hot, taviru b'mayim v'toher. You kasher it with water. And we're familiar with some of these halachas. So Nesivos Shalom asks, it's very interesting here. We're talking about a parsha of kashering kelim. The Torah says here, Zois chukas ha-Torah. This is a rule, a law for the whole Torah. Now really, what does this halacha of kashering kelim have to do with the rest of the Torah? Zois chukas ha-Torah. This is a rule, a law for the whole Torah. And the Torah, now we tell you how to kasher kelim. What does it have to do with anything else in life? What does it have to do with the rest of life? Anything else that the Torah mentions? So Nesivos Shalom brings a das Kain in Balei HaTosfos that he asks another question here also. Why do we wait to say this parsha? We're worried about goyim who used kelim. We're worried about that the kelim became treif. Why do we wait until after Milchemes Midyan? We know there was a war with Midyan. Why did we not mention this parsha after the Milchemes Sichon V'Oy? There was a Milchama already before this. And the kelim, the utensils, could have needed kashering back then too. Why did we wait until Milchemes Midyan? So the Nesivos Shalom answers, and he says that the Milchama with Midyan it represented much more than it was just on the surface a war with the people of Midyan. More than any other war, the Milchama with Midyan represented the Milchama with the Yetzer Hara. As we know, that Midyan, the people of Midyan, represented a great attempt to entice Klal Yisrael to do Averos, and they felt that if Klal Yisrael does that Averos, it would wipe out Klal Yisrael if they sinned. And we know, and we mentioned, we touched upon this last week too, that as a result of the Milchemes Midyan, as a result of what Midyan enticed Klal Yisrael to do, 24,000 people died in a Magefa. That was the biggest Magefa, the biggest plague in the Torah. So Milchemes Midyan was not just about people fighting. It represented a special and a strong Yetzer Hara to entice Klal Yisrael to do a sin. And the Zohar says that that time of Milchemes Midyan represented the all-time greatest spiritual danger for Bnei Yisrael. The Zohar says that there was no other time that we were in such jeopardy spiritually as with the time of Milchemes Midyan. It was the strongest Yetzer Hara that we ever had to face in our history. So the Torah says in Nesivos Shalom, the Torah is a Torah's Chaim. The Torah is alive. The Torah is not a history book. The Torah tells us how to live every part of our lives. The Torah is coming here to teach us a great life's lesson. Itaka is Zois Chukas HaTorah. It's not just the halachos of kashering kelim. The Torah is coming to give us a great life's lesson, a lesson that is being said to Klal Yisrael at that point, Zois Chukas HaTorah, but it applies to every one of us throughout history, to every individual person as well. And what is that lesson? What is the lesson? Zois Chukas HaTorah, a lesson we learn from kashering and from Midyan. Every person, says in Nesivos Shalom, every single person, and nobody escapes this, every person has their struggles with the Yetzer Hara. Every person. Some people like to knock other people, make fun of other people, that this person struggles with this or that. They don't like to mention their own struggles because it doesn't fit their agenda. But every person struggles with the Yetzer Hara. But you struggle with the Yetzer Hara on a daily basis, and most of the time we're able to push back with normal strength. The Yetzer Hara says, do this, and we say, no, I'm not doing that, because we're trained and we're learned, and we understand that we want to be good. But then there are times throughout every person's life, says in Nesivos Shalom, where the Yetzer Hara comes with extraordinary power. he comes to us with something that we seemingly cannot counter, that we can't push back so easily at the Yetzer Hara. And it is to that, says the Nesivos Shalom, that the Torah tells us, Zois chukas ha-Torah. This is the way of life. This is the way. A big struggle with the Yetzer Hara is a rule for all times, for all generations, for every person, for every time and every matzav, for any time that the Yetzer Hara fights you. This is the chukas ha-Torah. This is the way to deal with it. How do you deal with it? How do we fight back? So now the Torah tells us what the rule is in the Torah, and it makes very sense. Kol dover asher yavoy bo eish, ta'aviru bo eish. If the Yetzer Hara comes to you, and he comes to you in a very strong way that's hard to handle, we fight fire with fire. If it was used, that's an expression, fight fire with fire. Kol dover asher yavoy bo eish, ta'aviru bo eish. The Avodas Yisrael, from the Kozhnitzes, Chusay Yogan Aleinu, we'll get the history after, and in Yonei Shabbos HaGodol, he talks about the Gemara Masechta Avodah Zarah, Daf Ayin Heyo Mid Beis, and he says that anything that's used for hot, we know it needs Hagolah, with hot water. Here with Hilchos Pesach, the Gemara tells us that anything that's used for hot, you need Hagolas Kelim, you have to use for hot. And something which is used for cold, Gemara tells us you just wash it off, like we mentioned at the beginning of this year. And he says, Avodas Yisrael brings it down to every person. Says, the Yetzer Hara comes to you, and he makes you do an Aveira with intensity. He comes, and everybody has this Yetzer Hara at times. It's very, very hard to fight back. So the way to fight, what does it mean to fight back with fire? It means to fight back with Hislavas to Kedusha. The Yetzer Hara comes to you, so you go to a davening with a bigger bren, with a bigger geshmak. You need to fight the Yetzer Hara. You can't be casual. You can't just go about your life. You have to go and daven an extra special shachris, mincha, ma'ariv, whatever it is, an extra special seder. I'm going to stay another few minutes. I'm going to concentrate. I'm going to try to do a little retifus. I'm going to learn a half hour straight, 10 minutes straight, 5 minutes straight, but I'm going to do something with an extra special hislahavas to Kedusha. But says the Nesivos Shalom Matos Avodas Yisrael, there's a different level, even higher than that. And that's when the Yetzer Hara comes to you in a way that's above your koiches. Let's say it comes during a person's life also with overwhelming force. So we discussed the Yetzer Hara, that's your regular daily Yetzer Hara. Then we discussed one that pushes you a little harder. But then now there's a third level that with overwhelming force and ammunition he comes to you. So the Nesivos Shalom tells us that if you're in a battle and they're coming at you very, very hard, you can't take a couple of stones and throw it back. Ta'aviru bo'esh. The only way to do it is, as we mentioned now, to fight it with fire. Give all your ava and all your taivas, give it all to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a very strong way. So this parsha was said after Milchemes Midyan and not before, because Milchemes Midyan, as the Zohar said, represented the greatest Yetzer Hara that came to us. And the Torah is telling us, Zois chukas ha-Torah. If it's fire, you have to come back and have avodas Hashem. You have to come back with a very strong avodas Hashem. Kol davar asher yavoy bo eish. It comes with fire. Ta'aviru bo eish. You have to have avodas Hashem. Raise your level of avodas Hashem. Do it with Hislavas to Kedusha more than derech hateva. This is really a lesson to every one of us of how to deal with the Yetzer Hara. It comes in so many different ways. It's a very difficult nisayon sometimes. The answer is avodas Hashem in a passionate way. Avodas Hashem with stronger Hislahavas. When the Yetzer Hara comes to you like that, we fight back. We do extra special things in avodas Hashem. And that is what we take this week. Chazak, v'nis chazek. We should have chizuk in Bein Adam Lachaveroi, as we mentioned at the beginning of the shir. But we also need the chizuk in Bein Adam Lamokai to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with eish, with fire. And that's the best way to fight back with the Yetzer Hara. Chazak, v'nis chazek on the Shabbos Mevorchim. Special Shabbos, extra special Cholent, extra special Google, extra special Avodas Hashem.